Do you know why the screenwriting program used as the industry standard is called Final Draft and not First Draft? Because your first draft will always suck, and it should never be the finished product. I don't care if you're the greatest writer since Bill Shakespeare, your first draft is going to suck. It always is going to suck. But that's okay, and I'm going to tell you why in this video. Now before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe, smash that like button, ding ding that notification bell and all that jazz. Just, just give me engagement, please. Your first draft is your first thoughts poured out of your brain, and it's your first ideas. It's never going to be good because it's an unseemly mess. These ideas are never the refined final versions. They can be good ideas and have great potential for a finished story, but they can never be the end product. Not the way you want it to be. When miners dig up diamonds, they're not digging up the final shining brilliant product. What they're actually getting is this weird unrefined thing that looks like a lumpy sugar cube or something. Now imagine if every thought you ever had in your head suddenly came pouring out of your mouth all at once. It would be a nightmare. We have verbal filters for that, or at least some of us do. But the point of a first draft is just to get your jibber jabberings down onto paper, just to kind of come up with what will be your first idea. Now, to give credit to my friend Nick Holmes, who directed the Double Dragon episodes of my show My Life as a Video Game, link in the description, look at your first draft as kind of like your source material. It's not really a script yet. It is the thing that you're going to adapt and refine and make into something better. Once you're done with that first draft, you can use the source material to chip away at the rough edges and come out with that brilliant diamond in the end.
I mean, that wasn't the line, but that's more inspiring.
Yeah.
I'm inspired. I'm gonna be a diamond.
Just to give an example, the first screenplay that I ever wrote, the first draft of it was well over 160 pages, and that was supposed to be about a 115-page script based on the genre that I was writing. Definitely wouldn't make a great final script, and that was the point. From personal experience, it's always been easier to create and then take away than to do the opposite. Similar to the principle when people tell you if you don't ask, then you don't get. Well, if you don't write, then nothing's going to go down the paper. So it's okay for your first draft to suck. You'll make horrible mistakes that you thought were genius ideas at the time, and the reverse. You'll write things down that you think this isn't a great idea, and it turns out it was genius. Or at least something you might be able to mold into genius. One of my favorite examples of this is a story that I once heard about director M. Night Shyamalan, creator of films such as Unbreakable and Glass. Now, I haven't spoken with the guy since The Restraining Order, ever since The Last Airbender came out, sent me into a rage-filled nerd meltdown and, I had to go into a psychiatric facility. But I really like The Sixth Sense. I think it's a great, well-written movie with, a very strong narrative and characters. I think it's his best work, and the story goes that he wrote 11 drafts of that script. And it wasn't until the 4th draft that he even had something that made it into the final shooting script in the end, which apparently got cut out in the edit anyway. He carved away at that raw diamond until its brilliance shone through. Now compare that to some of his later movies, which are less refined.
Well, then what do I do to make this any good?
You don't. Not on the first draft. But here are some steps to make sure you're on the path to a good final draft. Let's break this down like 3 acts of a movie. Beginning, middle, and end. How to develop before the draft.
What do you mean before the first draft? I thought that was the first thing that you write.
Before you begin to write your actual first draft and spill your brain onto a page, it's good to have an idea of exactly what you want your story to be. One technique that I like to do, not necessarily for the screenwriting itself, but for the treatment and the logline and pitch phases, is basically to write everything down physically, by hand. Pen to paper. Because I am an artiste.
Alright, settle down.
But seriously, there is a better, more fluid connection between your brain and your hand than there is between sort of like your brain and a computer. There seems to be this more creative thing when you're not clattering away at a keyboard and you're not being shunned by a bright light in your face from a computer screen. It's just you and the page. And there is something very visceral about that connection that is very conducive to creativity. This is where I like to use my sequence structure cheat sheet, which you can download for free in the link below in the description. One way to put your ideas down on page is through something called a beat breakdown. It is the way you can bullet point your story and write down each beat as they come and build your structure around it. For more information on that, check out my other video, which you can check out by clicking on the I in the bottom or top Right.
It's called How to Structure Your Screenplay.
And when you're writing it by hand, you can be as messy and frantic as you want. You can have your pen and paper by your bed and just scribble down notes when you're in the middle of watching, I don't know, anything on Netflix. You're binging stuff. And one big advantage of that is because quite often you'll come up with an idea and then 5 minutes later forget it. So let's say you've written down all the ideas you want for your script. You've started to come up with a beat breakdown, you've got a structure, and now you've got to type it up into the computer. And this gives you a kind of advantage because it gives you an automatic rewrite before you've even started writing the script. This is what you could call a draft 0.5. How to create your first draft. There is an importance to writing your first draft and letting it be total crap. Nearly every writer I know is riddled with their own massive complexes and issues, and we constantly suffer from the idea of writer's block and the fear that we will never mount up and nothing we put down will ever be good enough. But you can't let it get you stuck like that, because in my opinion, there is no such thing as writer's block on the first draft, because you've already come up with the idea, and the first draft is designed to be as awful as it can be. It's the wireframe, not the final product. I sometimes don't even think when I'm writing. I don't even look at the screen sometimes because I'm just trying to crank it all out and get it on the page. It is more important to get a good flow going than to bring a high standard of writing to your first draft. Let your first draft be awful. Let it get from up here where it is less valuable down onto the page where it is far more valuable to you and to other people to read. And then once all is said and done, you've gotten your notes back and you've had some thoughts, go to town on it like a mass murderer. Hey Kelsey, pass me one of my swords, please. Because that's a normal thing to ask your friend. Even if you are letting it be crap, the good thing is that you can be overly critical about yourself. And when other people read it back, they might have other thoughts. They might really like it. It's an excellent trait to have to be overcritical, because it helps you evolve as a writer. And as they say, writing is rewriting.
But what if my second draft isn't any good?
Iterate to the final draft. Why am I doing that? There's a checklist that I like to do to improve my work. And be warned, doing it you will have to let people read your work. First of all, I have people read my script in a table read. It's always fun to hear people read your script out loud because, you'll get some fun people, you have some socializing, and sometimes people do funny voices. Everybody's got a bit of an actor in them. It's important to get the average Joe's perspective as well, because at the end of the day, they're going to be your audience. Even more important if you're writing something like sci-fi or fantasy, which has high concepts that might be a bit confusing to some people. It's good so that the audience that you're going to be eventually making this movie for gets what the hell you're talking about. Just remember, you don't have to take every bit of advice that anyone gives you. There is a whole side industry dedicated to rewriting scripts. They're called script doctors, and they make their money by finding what was great about an original first draft or even second draft and bringing out the brilliance of it. In fact, one of James Cameron's first jobs after he directed The Terminator was rewriting the script for Rambo 2. Next, write a list of characters and the scenes they are in. Are there any characters in there who are just surplus to requirements? Do their stories run out halfway through and then they just become background noise? Are all the arcs of these characters even complete? The best thing to do is get rid of the characters that have absolutely no purpose in your story and are just there to be background noise. Thin the herd. In fact, if they are a character that has a purpose but they run out halfway through, kill them off. Make it have that emotional gut punch for your protagonist that drives them forward into the next act. Next are the scenes themselves. Write out a list of all the scenes and decide which ones you think fit in the script. If some of these don't feel like they actually are there for a reason, cut them out. Which of your scenes are important to your script? Which of them are important to your story structure and progress your character's motivations and the narrative further? Make sure every scene in your screenplay is in service of the overall narrative goal. If it's a character scene or an exposition scene that you just can't bring yourself to remove because it explains or gives motivation to someone later in the script, then try and find a way to make it work within the structure that you have. A great example of this is the movie Terminator, where Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor are getting chased and gunned down by a giant Schwarzenegger bot, and he has to explain what a Terminator is, what's happening in the future, but they're all doing this while getting chased by a giant evil robot. This keeps the audience invested in the story and the scene while driving the plot forward. And that's what you can do with your scenes when you're going through your lists. Once these sections are done, I'd say try and take a look at your script as a whole and see if the characters and scenes line up with the themes and messages that you're trying to tell. Does everything come together as a cohesive whole? Do the development of the characters match up with what you're trying to tell in your initial idea, or do you have to make some grand sweeping changes to change the idea of the entire script? If they still feel detached, it's time for another draft, but this time you can keep what works and get rid of what doesn't. You keep doing this until all that is left is the priceless diamond that is your script. The most important thing to remember is that your first draft is never going to be your best work, and nor should it be. When George Lucas wrote Star Wars, he originally wrote a screenplay that contained most of the events from Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi in one screenplay. And that was over 250 pages long. And he ended up having to cut it down loads. He took his original first draft and refined it. He made a better version, going through, hacking and slashing, and coming up with one of the most successful media franchises in human history. And now, it's your turn. Thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe and hit the notification bell to make sure that you get updates on all of our new videos so you can learn all these new things and, listen to me ramble about total crap forever. Let me know if there's anything you guys want me to talk about in the future. Leave a comment below. Just want to say thank you to Kelsey Ellison, who has been standing patiently behind the camera right now, making sure that I don't mess up my lines, which I still did a couple of times.
That's okay, you're welcome. Bye.
Don't forget to check out my other series, My Life as a Video Game, and the short film that I'm working on right now with Kelsey, Sisters of House Black. There is a preview scene on her channel right now. Link in the description below.